I want to eliminate every single voter registration law. All of them. All of them in every state are bad, right? That's different from voter eligibility. If you're eligible to vote, you should just be able to rock up to the polls and vote. So we could just get rid of all of them. We could just get rid of all of them. And the people will say like, oh, well, we can't do that because of voter fraud, right? Well, first of all, and I know this is going to be hard for some listeners who spend a lot of time listening to Republican lies, but voter fraud does not exist.
I loved how you broke that down in the book. Expound, please.
Right?
Yeah.
Voter fraud just doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. We shouldn't make laws based on protecting us from things that don't exist. Right? Republicans keep saying we need voter ID. The voter ID is the thing that secures our election, that protects us from voter fraud. And I call their bluff. I'm like, all right, you want voter ID? Fine. Let's make a deal. Remember how this country used to actually make deals in order to move forward? Let's make a deal. I'll give you your voter ID. It's got to be national. It's got to be free, because if it's not free, it violates the 24th Amendment's prohibition on poll taxes. But you give me a free national, I'll give you a free national voter ID, and you give me automatic registration of every eligible voter that is also portable between either in the states or between the states. Portable means if I move, I don't have to re-register. My registration follows me. I don't have to follow my registration. You give me that deal, I will give you your ID card. Who says no? And I promise you, the people who say no are the Republicans, are the ones who claim that voter ID is necessary to secure our election, because their goal is not to secure elections, because again, voter fraud doesn't exist. Their goal is to restrict people from voting.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about more bombshell DOGE findings that basically are pushing back against the Democrats and their claims that there's no voter fraud, the illegal immigrants aren't voting, that there's no fraud in Social Security, everything is perfect, everything is great. Elon Musk is just trying to cut grandma's paycheck, right? This is what they say. Although Democrats used to agree with Elon back in the past when it comes to this idea that, hey, there is waste, fraud, and abuse even in our social safety net programs. Yes, people are abusing the system. Illegal immigrants are abusing the system. Things that Democrats used to believe when they were a sane party.
I thank the gentleman, salute him for his work on this, rise in support of the amendment. First of all, Social Security card is used from one end of America to the other as an identification card right now. Who are we kidding? If you want to pass a law and says it shouldn't be, I would ask the chairman and the distinguished minority member of the Social Security committee to pass that law, but let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card. This is an anti-fraud amendment. All over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud. And here, the gentleman from Florida has put together the most effective anti-fraud measure we can find without it changing the actions of the government one bit. And we find all this opposition. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, what I worry about is that this bill, which started out with good intentions, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, is going to end up being the same kind of thing that the public gets angry with us on. We say we're doing something, and we do nothing. Because every time someone makes a rational and small proposal to get something done, people say, well, what about this hypothetical, that hypothetical, etc. I urge support of this amendment. If you believe you want to stop fraud in immigration, you have no choice but to support this amendment.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Yeah, so again, the Trump derangement has transformed the Democrat Party into something that is unrecognizable, right? I don't know exactly what to call or what to make of the modern day Democrat Party outside of the fact they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and they want to deny reality. They want to say these things don't exist, don't pay attention. And I think part of the reason why is because they benefit from it, right? I think that the only hope the Democrats really have come 2030 is for the illegals to give them a boost, right? I think that is what they really want, okay? And this is why they do not want transparency when it comes to the findings of DOGE. However, because we have the internet, okay, we have these large podcasts, these large platforms, unfortunately for Democrats, the truth is being exposed. And Mr. Antonio Gracias, who is working with Elon Musk, okay, he is Elon Musk's friend. He's an investor, very smart guy. He's going to talk about some of the findings that they have discovered when it comes to Social Security and how the illegals are taking advantage of Social Security to get benefits and in some cases vote, right? And I want to play this video because I think it's important for people to listen to this guy and to understand exactly what he's saying. We've already talked about this before, but he's going to go in more detail. And it's so funny because the mainstream media keeps talking about how they're not going into details about what they're finding or what's happening. And it's like, that's exactly what they're doing, right? The liberal media, they're just refusing to acknowledge it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
Started in 2017. So they probably worked on it before that, right? It takes a few years to put these things into place. They worked at it, my guess is, back during the Obama administration. It actually became active in 17. You see a few numbers in 18, and it starts to get a little bigger in 19 and 20, right? So that's how we get this baseline number of 19 and 20. That's where we're using that data here. So there isn't, I can't go back 20 years. It doesn't exist. And then when we dug into it, what we found was the vast majority of the growth was related to asylum programs and parolees and people that came in on NTAs, this is notice to appear, into the country, either at the border or at the airports, mostly at the border. And then we dug further into it, we found that this is about 5.4 million people total. There were about 1.2 million people that the status was marked as unknown, and about 1.2 million people that were marked as general parole. And they should have markings of, what the program is they're under. Because if you claim asylum, you're supposed to claim like a real fear. I'm going to be tortured by my country. Something bad is going to happen to me. That's why I can't go home. What we find here is that a legitimate program was, in the word I'll use, abused. The requirements were super opened so that more people come through. And the example I'll give you, I have here actually the form. The form used to be, going back in time, a 4-page form that the officer had to fill out in the field. And the person that was claiming asylum had to actually prove that they had a really credible fear of being, murdered, tortured by their government. That's something bad would happen. That's what the sound's for. It turned into a form, which I can't give you, but I'm going to show you here. If you zoom in on it, it has 4 questions. That's it. And the 4 questions are super leading. I'll just read the one of the important ones here, right? So, do you have any reason for a concern about being returned to your home country or being removed from the United States? I mean, could that be more leading? Right. What they did is they just opened the aperture on these programs dramatically. So they allowed people that were illegals at the border to come in legally. And as we've dug further into it, we found this took us. So you guys know me, man. I'm a very methodical, lean business process mapper. And we went all the way to the border, literally to Brownsville and Laredo, to ask what happened. We couldn't find the data on what these unknown categories were. And it turns out that when the folks at the border, who were great, by the way, they really tried hard, and they suffered a lot in this. This is a human tragedy I haven't talked about. They were giving people at times notices to appear. This is the NTA. And what that allows you to do is come in the country, and then you're scheduled a court date, which is like 6 years out. So now you're in the country with some quasi-legal status. You're waiting for your court date. And while you're waiting for your court date, which could be 6 years out is the average, by the way. It could be longer than that. You're waiting for your court date. You could fill out an asylum application. So without even an interview, just an application by filing a form. Once the application's in, you can file another form, 765, to get a work authorization. Once you get that, you get a 766, which is the authorization, and we automatically send you a Social Security card in the mail. No interview at all. That is the majority of the growth you see in these numbers.
Is there any idea?
Yeah, so I want to explain exactly what's going on so that people understand what he's talking about. What he's talking about is a program within Social Security that was abused by the Biden administration in order to get illegal immigrants Social Security cards, right? They basically get them into the country. Now, it's not abnormal for the government to give migrants who are here legally to work Social Security cards, right? Or Social Security identification. However, the problem is that under the Biden administration, what they did is that they basically made it as easy as possible for illegal immigrants to become legal, aka to claim asylum, right? So when he was talking about the questionnaire and all that stuff, he basically was pointing out how they were helping illegal immigrants claim asylum, right? They were basically leading them to say, hey, you're here for asylum, right? You can come right on in, and we're going to help you with everything that you need, and we're going to send you on your way, right? We're going to give you a social security card, even though they should not have been allowed in the country in the first place, right? They're not really seeking asylum, right? They're just here to try to work or to get jobs or whatever. They're economic migrants. They just want to live in the United States of America. They're legals, right? And that's just not how it's supposed to work. You can't just walk through the border and all of a sudden now you're here legally, right? That's not how it works. But that is what the Biden administration gamed the system to allow, right? Which essentially has led to a large number of illegals getting social security cards who actually should not have them, right? So that's what's happening, so that everybody kind of understands what he's talking about.
Verification along the way, Antonio? Like, do we know that there are no duplications happening by validating that one individual is getting one social security number at any point in this process?
So it's a great question. No, the answer is there's no real ID verification. So you can, one of the things we found, we looked at this was the people that some people showed IDs, some people didn't. And one of the things
these would be IDs, Antonio, from their home country. This would be a Venezuelan driver's license or something.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a passport, a driver's license. But here's what really sort of tipped us off and disturbed us. When we looked at the birth certificate data that was presented at the border, the number one birth date was 1/1. And it was 4 times more likely to be born on 1/1 than any other day of the year. Now, we all know this isn't true.
So they just hit enter on that part of the form.
Or they had nothing. They also could come with nothing.
Do we take biometrics of people at the border? Do we take like an iris scan, fingerprints, and all that stuff?
This is one of the issues. I mean, we do have photos of people. We found that 23% of the records looked at did not have fingerprints. And look, the folks at the border were overwhelmed. And we're not sure why this happened. I will tell you guys, just to understand, when I went down there, both Border Patrol and Border Protection told me they had the highest suicide rates of all time during the surge. Okay, over 70 of these agents committed suicide in this period. It's truly tragic because they knew what was going on.
Given the fact that all this has happened, is the Trump administration going to try to claim the Social Security numbers back, invalidate them? What will be the proper action, or is it too late? Are they already sort of in the system and now you can't do anything about it?
So, Ben, it's a great question, right? And the first question was, what are they doing? I mean, like, where are these people? Where are they? How are they? And we've gone through a whole process of mapping this. So we mapped it through to the benefit programs. We found in the benefit programs that every benefit program we looked at was being accessed by these people. 1.3 million of them are on Medicaid right now, today. Wow. And by the way, it's just ramping. It's just starting, just to give you a point. And then out of curiosity, I woke up at night like 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. My mind was running on this. I sent the engineers a note saying, hey, guys, let's just look at the public voter rolls, see what we find in some friendly states. And we looked at the voter rolls, and we found that thousands of them were registered to vote in a handful of states. And then we went even further with those friendly states and found that many of those people had actually voted. It was shocking to us. And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. And so now the question we're asking ourselves is, what do we do? We referred some to prosecution. That's ongoing right now. We're thinking through how to do it. And the reality is they have various kinds of status, and it's a very detailed analysis legally that we're working through right now about how to deal with it.
Wow. Absolutely insane. People should be pissed off by this. They should be pissed off to hear that illegal immigrants are getting access to Medicaid, right? So American citizens pay taxes to fund the health care of people, some of whom don't work, right? But regardless, okay, they're getting the Medicaid because they're living in poverty, right? Their incomes aren't high enough. So they're getting government assistance. And the Democrats were taking the illegal immigrants and allowing them to get access to those benefits, right? The illegals. Now, again, Democrats are facilitating the illegals coming into the country, living off of the system, and then allowing them to register to vote, right? Allowing them to register to vote. Again, this is why they don't want any kind of voter ID. They don't want any type of voter registration, which is why I played the video that I did at the beginning of this video, is to show you guys why is it that they don't support any type of real election integrity or election security, because of stuff like this. And then they'll turn around and tell you, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist if you believe that there's there's voter fraud, right? There's no such thing. It never happened, right? Even though we've covered stories about Democrat primaries where there was election fraud, right? We've covered these types of stories. Okay, it definitely happens. Okay, it does happen. But Democrats will tell you it doesn't happen. And the more they scream and cry and tell you it doesn't happen, that gives me more reason to believe that it does happen. And they don't want Elon Musk and DOGE going through these programs, not because they're going to take away grandma's check. It's because they're going to get in the way of the Democrats and their agenda, right? They're going to expose the agenda of the fact that Democrats are taking our money and giving it to illegal immigrants in multiple ways. Okay. I mean, we already know about them taking the money, giving it to the nonprofits, and then the nonprofits using it to house the illegals in nice 5-star hotels and stuff like that. We already know that. We already know about all the food they give the illegals and clothes and stuff like that. But again, they're on Medicare. They're on our social safety nets. Programs that we paid into, and Democrats are bending over backwards to give our tax dollars to the illegals, but yet they'll turn around and boohoo, whine, and cry about Elon taking grandma's check, even though that's not happening. But again, what is happening is that, again, illegals are getting access to the social safety nets that we pay for. That's what's happening. That's what people should be outraged about.
So thousands of those people registered to vote.
Yes.
In the election.
Which is a federal crime, by the way.
Well, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is, like, the Heritage Foundation has a very good project. You know, it's obviously right-leaning, where they're studying all cases of fraud. I looked at it before we were here. There's only been 24 cases since 2003 of somebody who's a non-citizen trying to vote. Now, those are people caught. So this would be incredibly dramatic if it was even 1,000 people.
Oh, no, Jason, it's more than 1,000. I've seen it. I've seen the data myself, and it's more than 1,000 in just a couple of states. I mean, it is shockingly bad. And this is the tip of the iceberg, guys. It's the tip of the iceberg. This doesn't include these 7.8 million people that ICE has that have come in illegally and know are here, and all the people that came illegally we don't know are here. I mean, this is not a political issue. I want to be really clear about this.
Yeah, Antonio,
this is about America.
Let's just take one step back, because I just want you to repeat this. So, because I think it's important, and we may have just run over it a little too quickly. When you get a social security number, what you're saying is there's all of these important downstream consequences. One of the downstream consequences is you could show up, register to vote, and that's an illegitimate action that's breaking federal law. That's one. But the second is that without knowing who this person is, they can start to absorb resources that could have otherwise gone to an American. I guess that's like a fundamental part of this.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
How do you quantify that? Can you just maybe explain it a little bit more about all of the different ways in which you think now, you know, the United States ends up leaking services to these folks?
And also they could be contributing too, right? They could be paying taxes into the system. And so I guess there's both of those possibilities, and both of those have fingerprints to them up. So yeah, good question.
You know, look, we need to figure this out. This is it's massively complex. You can see the map I have on the whiteboard in our office. It's huge. And we're figuring it out right now. But let me just tell you this. In every benefit program we looked at, and this is just a handful of states, we found people on all the benefit programs. And we found them on unemployment. We found them on Medicaid. So, Jason, to your point, the people on Medicaid and unemployment, they're not contributing. They're taking out, they're mooching, right?
Sure.
There are criminals. I mean, look, we sent this data list to the National Targeting Center. I don't want to get too far into the data, but I can tell you they found hard hits in the Targeting Center of very bad people, criminals and people on the terrorist watch list that are in this group. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a problem. We got to figure out how to deal with it. And of course, there are people that are also, you know, have jobs and paying in the system. That's also true. All these things are true. And we're trying to sort through the data and figure out how to actually deal with it now.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. This is the type of stuff that in a sane country, this would not be a partisan issue, right? This would be a nonpartisan issue where both sides can come together and agree this is wrong, right? Like, you know, if this is happening, then it's something that needs to be fixed. It's not okay to have illegal immigrants abuse the system and to get access to our social safety net. Now, again, they'll swap it down. Oh, it's not happening, right? And that's what they do. And instead, what you have is that you have Democrat Party terrorists out here basically vandalizing Teslas because Elon Musk is actually trying to save grandma's check, right? Elon Musk is trying to make sure that we can afford to give healthcare to people that can't afford it, right? That's what he actually is doing. Okay. And the way that you do that is that you make sure people who are getting the benefits are supposed to be the ones getting the benefits. Okay. Not people who never contributed to the system at all that are not American citizens. Those people are not supposed to get it, because if they're getting it, then they're taking it away from somebody else. But hey, you know, Democrats, they don't care about that. Okay. Because again, this is a part of what they want, right? They want to allow as many illegals into the country as possible, get them on the system, right? So that they support Democrats, and then Democrats give them a pathway to citizenship, and then they turn around and they vote Democrat, right? That's the only thing at this point that can really save the Democrat Party, the illegals. And this is why they have radicalized their base with lies to go out and to commit acts of terrorism because of this transparency, right? Democrats hate transparency. They can't stand it. Now we see why. So again, I don't have any reason to doubt this guy's findings, right? I'm sure more information is going to come out. I don't think he would be doing this if he was not telling the truth. It's not like this guy is some staunch Republican. No, right? He is somebody that apparently was a Democrat at one point, right? And, you know, for him, I guess it's about doing the right thing. And I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing more of his findings. I'm also looking forward to hearing and seeing about some prosecutions, right? Because in order to really rectify the situation, people have to be held accountable. But again, if there are illegals who are voting, which in my opinion, I have no doubts that some illegals have gamed the system, that needs to be exposed as well too, because then at that point, the left, they can't talk about how voter fraud doesn't exist and that it never happens, that illegals aren't voting and all this and that. We know that there are people gaming the system, and we know that states that do have strong voter ID, that have strong election integrity laws, they tend to vote Republican, right? They tend to lean conservative. And the Democrats, their states, right, that don't have voter ID, that don't have strong election integrity, they tend to be Democrat, right? I'm just saying, I think that is for a reason. It's not the reason that liberals claim, right? Oh, it's voter suppression, right? They're just suppressing all the Democrats, all the black people from voting, right? I don't think that is the reason, okay? But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.